Have you ever pondered why Jamaican men, particularly those undocumented, often face abuse abroad at the hands of women? It's a question that might seem obscure, but it's a reality for many. Throughout this video, we're going to unravel the 5 main reasons why this happens. Firstly, we'll discuss the common misconception that these men are only interested in relationships for the sake of securing residency. Secondly, we'll explore the bias in law enforcement, which often leans in favor of women, particularly when they're the ones making the call. Thirdly, we'll delve into how these men are often isolated from their social circles. Fourthly, we'll talk about how some women use their status to control these men. Lastly, we'll discuss how these men are sometimes restricted to only communicate with their partners. These are complex issues, deeply rooted in societal norms and power dynamics. Let's delve into these reasons and shed some light on this disturbing trend. Firstly, misconceptions about intentions often take center stage. Imagine this: a Jamaican man meets a foreign woman, sparks fly, and a bond begins to form. But all too often, a cloud of suspicion looms over this budding romance. The woman, influenced by stereotypes and misconceptions, starts to question the man's motives. Is his interest genuine, or is it merely a quest for legal status? This assumption, unfortunately, is not uncommon. It's a narrative that has been woven into society through countless anecdotes and media portrayals, and it's damaging. It reduces a complex human being to a single, unflattering stereotype. It casts doubt on sincere emotions, and it creates a barrier of mistrust that can be tough to dismantle. This presumption of intent can set a toxic foundation for a relationship, leading to abuse and mistrust. It's a misconception that needs to be addressed, and a stereotype that needs to be debunked. Secondly, we must consider the evident bias in law enforcement. When we talk about bias, we're referring to the power imbalance that can exist between foreign women and Jamaican men, especially those who are undocumented. This imbalance can be exploited, turning it into a tool of manipulation and control. Imagine being in a situation where just the threat of calling the police can make you feel powerless. This is a reality many Jamaican men face when they're in relationships with foreign women. The fear of law enforcement being involved, knowing that the scales of justice might tip unfavorably, can be enough to keep someone in line, even if it means enduring abuse. Not only is this a form of psychological manipulation, but it also puts the men in a precarious position. They're often left to wonder if their side of the story will be heard, let alone believed. This is not to say that all law enforcement agencies are biased, but perceptions and fears can be just as powerful as reality, especially in situations of vulnerability. This power dynamic, where a person can be silenced by fear, is one of the many ways bias in law enforcement can manifest. It's a tool of control that can be wielded by an abuser, keeping their victim in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. This fear of law enforcement can be a powerful weapon in the hands of an abuser. Thirdly, social isolation comes into play. It's a common yet often overlooked aspect of abuse. In many cases, foreign women attempt to control Jamaican men by isolating them from their friends and support network. It's a subtle form of manipulation, an attempt to gain power and control by cutting off the man's social ties. Imagine being in a new country, away from your familiar surroundings, and then being separated from the few connections you've managed to make. It's a devastating feeling, a sense of being alone in a crowd. This isolation can lead to feelings of loneliness, depression, and can severely impact a person's self-esteem. Isolation is not just about physical separation, it can also be emotional. The person can feel neglected, unloved, or unimportant. This emotional isolation can be even more damaging than physical isolation, as it directly attacks the person's self-worth and self-esteem. It's important to underline that this isn't a unique situation to Jamaican men. It's a universal form of abuse experienced by many across the globe, regardless of their nationality or gender. But by shining a light on this issue, we can start a conversation about it and hopefully help those who are experiencing it. No man or woman should ever be cut off from their social support, yet it is a common tactic in abusive relationships. Let's change that narrative and foster communities of support and understanding. Fourthly, we encounter control issues. It's not uncommon to find that in some relationships, one party tries to exert dominance over the other. It's a delicate dance of power dynamics, often leaning unfavorably against undocumented Jamaican men. These men may find themselves under the thumb of their partners who, knowingly or unknowingly, may engage in controlling behaviors. From dictating their daily routines to making significant decisions without their input, these actions can be psychologically and emotionally damaging. It's subtle yet profound, a slow chipping away at the man's sense of self, his autonomy, his freedom. This kind of behavior is not about love or care, but about control and power. It's important to recognize and address these signs early on, as they can lead to a toxic environment. Control issues can quickly escalate and turn a relationship into a prison. Lastly, we come to communication restrictions. Picture this: a man is in a new country, eager to make connections, form friendships, and immerse himself in the culture. But he finds himself limited, confined to interactions with just one person, his partner. Some foreign women, for reasons of their own, may insist that their partners only communicate with them. This can be a form of control, a way to keep tabs on their partner's activities and conversations. Yes, trust is a cornerstone of any relationship, but so is freedom, the freedom to talk, to interact, to form bonds outside the relationship. When such freedom is curtailed, the relationship can become a cage, stifling personal growth and independence. It's essential to remember that open communication and mutual respect form the backbone of a healthy relationship. Such restrictions can stifle personal growth and freedom, leading to an unhealthy relationship dynamic. So, why do Jamaican men, particularly those undocumented, face such abuse abroad? We've delved into 5 reasons today, highlighting the challenges and misconceptions that can lead to abuse. First, we talked about how some foreign women may misjudge intentions, assuming that the relationship is only pursued for legal status. Then, we discussed the unfortunate bias in law enforcement, which tends to favor the woman in disputes. This bias can be even more pronounced when the man is undocumented. We also explored social isolation, where men are discouraged from having a social circle outside their relationship. Control issues were our 4th point, with some foreign women wanting to have undue control over their partners. And finally, we discussed communication restrictions, where men are expected to only talk to their partner on the phone. By shedding light on these issues, we can begin to address them and work towards a world where every relationship is based on respect, trust, and mutual understanding.